Hello everyone and welcome to NFL Discussion. I'm your host NFL enthusiast Dougie Doug. In today's episode we'll be discussing Monday Night Football, Week 13 of the 2022 NFL season. In this edition of Monday Night Football, well, on paper it might not have looked like the most appealing matchup, and then watching the game through like the first three quarters and well into the fourth, it probably looked like, it probably felt and looked like a pretty boring game to watch. But Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time for a reason, and he found a way to not only make it interesting in the end, but also get a win for his team in the end. And with that, we'll go ahead and get right into the action, starting with the Saints. Andy Dalton completed 20 of 28 passes for 229 yards and one touchdown. So Dalton was relatively effective in a game that the Saints held a 13-point lead with only 3 minutes remaining, only to watch Tom Brady score twice in the final 3 minutes to steal the victory. His best throw in the game came on a 3rd and 17 with just over 2 minutes remaining, but a huge hit on Taysom Hill to launch the ball to give possession back to the Bucs. Dalton's only touchdown in the game would come on a pass to quarterback / tight end / fullback / water boy / calendar boy Taysom Hill halfway through the second quarter, and his longest completion on the night came on a 40-yard dime to Rashid Shaheed. So give Dalton credit for his performance in this game, and because of it he should maintain his status as a starting quarterback for now. But that might be something that changes or is addressed during the team's Week 14 bye. And also, Dennis Allen, he's got some explaining to do. New Orleans should not have lost this game for a number of reasons. The Saints repeatedly drove down deep into Tampa Bay territory and consistently failed to convert on key downs, settling for field goals instead. The most impactful result came when Mark Ingram took a reception out of bounds, short of the line to gain, stopping the clock at 8:17 before Andy Dalton's pass was tipped at the line, landing incomplete, and New Orleans would choose to settle for another field goal. And that field goal left some room for Tampa Bay to still have a chance in this game. That kick only put them up 16-3, and following two consecutive 3-and-outs, including one where Taysom Hill dropped that pass after he got hit. There was enough time left for Brady to mount an unlikely comeback. The personnel decision on 3rd down certainly raised an eyebrow because the Saints knew their best play was a pass. It would have made more sense to throw it towards Olave or even Landry. Hill was still a bit of an unpolished pass catcher compared to those guys. The Saints, they made that call, they paid for that call, just as they did for playing soft zone coverage for much of Brady's first touchdown drive, and then switching to man, which left Paulson, Adebo one-on-one with Mike Evans, leading to a pass interference call that set up the game-winning touchdown. Allen's performance wasn't dotted with clear blunders, but certainly included some questionable decisions that contributed to their defeat. And with their defeat, New Orleans might have just lost its last legitimate chance to make a postseason run. Look, the NFC South is bad. We all know that. The Buccaneers, with this win, remain atop the division at 6-6, which, if you took that record, would rank 3rd in the NFC West, 2nd in the NFC North, and last in the NFC East. So that reality meant the Saints, even at 4-8 coming into this game, still had an outside shot of reaching the playoffs until they lost Monday night. 2 3-and-outs in the Bears' off defensive series took what appeared to be an inspiring gotta-have-it win and turned it into a crushing loss that could very well descend the Saints into irrelevance with 5 weeks left to play. Mathematical eliminations are already happening. I don't know if the Saints would be up next on the short list, but they gotta be near the bottom of that list, if not at the bottom of that list. As for the Buccaneers, Tom Brady completed 36 of 54 attempts for 282 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So the late game winning drive was the 44th of Brady's career, which broke a tie with Peyton Manning for the most in NFL history. And this was also the second time Brady has led a comeback after trailing by 13 or more points, the first of which came in Super Bowl 51 against the Falcons. Sorry about our Falcons fans. Brady and the Buccaneers were bottled up for most of the evening, managing just 3 points prior to touchdowns on their final 2 possessions of the game to cap the comeback win. Brady would hook up with tight end Kate Olden with 3 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter before tossing what was thought to be a touchdown to Chris Godwin with 19 seconds remaining, only for that to get called back for offensive holding by a guy, Donovan Smith, who has more holding calls than anybody else. Dude might be a liability, but then again, that whole offensive line is a liability. But he might be the biggest liability on a whole line of liabilities. So after chipping away at that lost yardage, Brady would connect with Rachaad White with just 3 seconds remaining to sink the Saints. So Tom Brady does it again. You think he's out? You think he's lost the game? You think he's out of the game? No. It was only 13. It was only 13 points. Tom Brady can manage that, and he did. And in all honesty, might just want, if he doesn't have the keys to the offense already, might want to give him the keys to the offense, because you think about Tampa Bay's offense in this game, and for large parts of the season, it's been downright bad. Now, Brady's not without fault, In this game against the Saints, he did miss a handful of throws to open targets downfield, and he drives before they could ever get going. Fortunately for the Buccaneers, their defense played well enough on third down to keep the Saints from running away with this one, but the offense just enough down in the fourth quarter to put something together, and put something together they did. And Tampa Bay's offense, day and night difference when they were running a 2-minute drill. When they were running a 2-minute drill to close out the game, and I guess the assumption is that Brady was calling the shots in that 2-minute drill, and the Buccaneers, they were at their best. They were at their best running that drill when the pressure, or I should say, that's when the Buccaneers have been at their best. In moments like these, when the pressure is at its highest, and if Brady was running the offense, why not let him run it just like this from the opening possession? The Buccaneers actively applied pressure on New Orleans defense, which developed from a stingy unit to a sieve of a unit. The Buccaneers might want to consider using this approach from the beginning of every single game left on the calendar, and perhaps then they'll finally unlock their offense and make it more productive. Either way, they're going to want to figure out something, because up next is the 49ers and that defense. So, if 2-minute drill setting is what makes your offense the most productive, then do that. Whatever makes your offense the most productive, do that, because, Nick Bosa is going to be on Brady's ass with how bad that offensive line is. So, you better think of something, and it better be good. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode, or not this episode, but this discussion on Monday Night Football. And now it is time for my favorite segment of the week, and that is the Throw It in the Towel segment. So this is a weekly segment on this show where every week I pick one team and I throw in the towel on their season. So just to do a quick recap, week 1, it was the Jets, but that's been rescinded. They did lose to the Vikings, but they're still above 500 and still hold a playoff spot. Week 2, it was the Texans. They've been eliminated from postseason contention, so I guess I was right on that one. Week 3, it was the Seahawks, and that has been rescinded. They're still in a pretty good spot. I don't know if they have the number 7 spot or if they're right on the outside, but either way, they're still in a good spot. They got to win. Week 4, it was the Panthers. They got to win, but they're still, they were on a bye. Week 5, it was the Steelers. They got to win, but still below 500. Week 6, it was the Bears. They've been eliminated from postseason contention, so I guess checkmark number 2 for that. Week 7 was the Lions. They got a big win, but they're still below 500. Week 8, it was the Jaguars. They lost to the Lions badly. Week 9, it was the Raiders. They got a win, still below 500. Week 10, it was the Saints. Week 11, it was the Broncos. Week 12, it was the Rams. And week 13 is this week's edition. So, looking at the NFC, there's really only one team repping the NFC, and that was the Falcons. There wasn't really any other teams in contention for that. And then on the AFC, well, it came down to three teams, the Patriots, Colts, and Chargers. And between those three teams, I went with the Colts. So the matchup for this week would be the Colts versus the Falcons. And between those two teams, my decision was made. And this week's team for NFL discussion, thrown in the towel week 13 edition, is the Indianapolis Colts. So when the fourth quarter of Sunday night's game between the Cowboys and Colts began, or opened, I should say, when the fourth quarter opened, the Colts were only down 2 points. There was an opportunity for the Colts to get a potentially season-saving win. 5 unanswered touchdowns later, and the Colts are on the wrong end of another bad loss. That blowout hammered home the fact that the 2022 Colts are still a mess from top to bottom. The Jeff Saturday experiment, it has been fun. It was fun while it lasted. But I think the owner, Jim Irsay, he's now faced with the reality, if he wasn't faced with it before. And that reality is that Saturday was an ill-advised hire. No matter how good of a leader he is, or how much experience he had as a player, he would not be he cannot correct the issues found within the Colts roster. It's time for a reset in Indianapolis. Irsay already began with the coaching staff when he fired the head coach, but I think perhaps maybe General Manager Chris Ballard, he might not be safe, which would make sense given that he was the one who traded for Matt Ryan and then built a roster and put around him. I mean, seriously, I don't understand why enough owners don't hold general managers accountable. They make a lot of bad decisions, but they get coaches fired, but then their job's still safe. Matt Ryan's tenure behind center is coming to an end. The Colts are a team about to enter a significant rebuild, and another bad effort from Ryan to post-game questions about potential switch, but Saturday indicated he's not inclined to make such a switch. And at this point, it probably doesn't matter anyway, and these problems go beyond one position. And really, if you were to make a switch to Nick Foles, I doubt that does anything. His roster is not good enough to be a contender. So that is my team for this week, the Indianapolis Colts. They are not contenders, but rather pretenders. Going to be an interesting offseason for Indy. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode of NFL Discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below.